Welcome back to another video. You already know we are in the car as usual. It is only me today. Felipe already went to work. I do need to go pick up something. I need to do my nails again, so I want to go see if there's any other colors. Finally got a phone stand for my car, so you guys are properly propped up there. So we're gonna go pick up the stuff that we need, and then we're gonna get to talking. Seatbelts always, people. Today's video is definitely gonna be more on the chatty side. It's really just gonna be kind of like a day in the life of a military spouse. So I'm off today, but honestly, a day off and a day that I go to work really isn't any too different other than like the routine, I guess. I really just wanted to talk about like what to expect and like how things are for those who might just barely be entering a relationship or like a marriage with somebody who's in the military and you're not, or you know, you will be at some point. Because I definitely didn't have anybody to talk to about it. Like obviously I kind of knew what I was getting into, but things are definitely different. There are some things that like you just don't know, or at least like aren't talked about as much. So oh my god, that is a big hole. Hopefully this video helps out somebody else who is gonna be in the same situation that I was in. First thing I want to say before we get into anything, like obviously the people who are going into the military and joining are sacrificing a lot, but like that's the job. You kind of know what you're signing up for at that point. And I feel like not a lot of people realize or talk about how much the person's partner or wife has to go through and how much they also have to sacrifice. I'm gonna go inside and go find some colors. I will be back. Honestly, they had such a horrible range of colors, so I'm just gonna stick to some kind of black and white design. Home we go. One thing that is definitely different than your normal life, going through the gate when you're trying to get on base, because that's just not something normal.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
Have a good one. That was definitely something weird to get used to once I moved here, having to go through a gate. Just living on base is something different and like weird to get used to, because for one, it's like you're on a military base. Second, in a few of our videos, I'm sure you've heard the jets and stuff in the background, but that took a little bit to get used to when I first moved here, because they fly at like all hours of the day. So in the morning I just wasn't getting sleep, but you get used to it. I feel like the military are seen as like these scary people, and they're really not. They're regular people just in uniform. Anyways, let's go inside. All right, we are back home. Got my little setup ready. We're just gonna do my nails while we chit chat for a bit. Grab your laundry, do your dishes, I don't know, whatever you wanna do if you just wanna listen. As I mentioned earlier, this video is really gonna be more like a little sit down video and chat. So for those who don't know, my husband's in the Air Force. He's been in for like almost 2.5 years now, and we are stationed up here in Alaska, which is on the other side of the world, considering we're from Florida. We didn't make it official until the very last day that he was coming to live in Alaska, and I just moved here this past summer, so we did long distance for about like 1.5 years, and that is definitely not something for the weak. He was literally on like the other side of the country, so that made it really difficult for us individually and just like for the relationship. He's definitely not one to argue about anything, like he's just not that type of person. But when you're in a long distance relationship, any small thing can turn into something so much bigger just because you miss the other person. There wasn't really anything bad that happened while we were in a long distance relationship. It was just really hard on the both of us. But I'd say the biggest and like most important thing for that is just like making sure that communication and the trust is there on both sides, like 100%. Otherwise it's just not gonna work in the slightest. So communicating with the other person and just really trusting the person no matter what is extremely important. Any of that just kind of goes for every relationship, but if you are doing long distance, then those two definitely need to be prioritized. As much as it sucks doing long distance, anytime you see the other person, you really just like enjoy the time that you get to be with them a lot more than if you're seeing them every day. And it also just gives you a chance to like travel a little bit more depending on like where you live or your station. So the long distance was definitely the hardest part out of this whole journey, but we made it through after 1.5 years. Definitely wasn't easy. It might be longer for other people until you get to move in with them. But regardless, the whole process is definitely worth it. And in the beginning, we had planned to do long distance almost like his whole term that he's supposed to be in the Air Force. We made a pretty big decision to get married way sooner than what we had planned. We got married last summer of 2022, and I was 19 and he was 20. Definitely took some convincing to our parents to agree with the decision of getting married at the time that we did. But honestly, just like stuff that was going on at that time, it was really just like the best thing for everybody. We saw the opportunity and we took it. Luckily, we got married, and I think I only stayed back home for like another 2 or 3 weeks until I moved here. And with that being said, that goes back to what I was saying earlier in the car, where wives or just like the other partner who isn't in the military has to sacrifice just as much as the person who is enlisted. Having to leave friends and family was definitely not easy. I would say the biggest thing that you really have to consider if you're in my shoes where the other person is in the military and you're not, kind of depends on what your situation is and like how old you are. But for me, is kind of around the time of like where you're going to college and figure out what you want to do with your life. We both definitely like already had plans of what we wanted to do. After a lot of consideration, I decided that I was going to put all of that on hold at the time. I remember I had an older classmate reach out to me around like the time that I had moved to Alaska, because she was in the same situation that I was in, and she was just kind of asking me like advice on that whole area of things. And I just told her, like, you and your partner need to have the discussion of whether you're going to stick out the long distance thing or the other person is just going to sacrifice what they want to do. If you do end up deciding to move wherever your partner is located, like I did. For me personally, our relationship was just kind of my priority. That's what I decided to do. And at the time, I was still going to school because it was online. It wasn't until recently that I decided I didn't want to go to school anymore, but that's irrelevant. I would say that's the biggest thing that you really need to sit down and talk about and figure out what you want to do. It's not going to be easy to get into a school or find a school that lets you do online and relocate, and also just trying to find a job wherever you have to relocate to. I was lucky that I was able to transfer from my job to up here, so I didn't really have to worry about trying to find jobs. I have heard through other people that like if you're trying to find a corporate job, it might be a little harder because depending on like how long you're going to be in that area, some companies might not want to hire you because they know that you're going to end up leaving anyways. So I would say those two things are really like the biggest sacrifices that you have to make. Obviously leaving family and friends, as well as like school and job wise what you want to do, because if you do end up wanting to still go to school and like start a career, it makes it difficult when you're with somebody who's in the military, because you don't know where you're going to be located, you don't know how long you're going to be there. So it's really hard to find like a set job and really start your career or school during the time that your partner is in the military, which was something that I considered before I decided that I didn't want to do what I had planned on doing in the beginning. For our situation, we won't be getting out till he's like 24, 25. And at that point, for me personally, that's just like not a time that I want to barely be starting my career. Like I would have wanted to start around right now where I'm going to be 21. And that was just something that I decided I didn't want to do anymore. So I've found other hobbies that I want to do, and we've both discussed other businesses that we want to get into that don't interfere with where we're at or what we're doing at that time. That's just really something to think about. And of course, like you can always start your career in school at any age that you want. For me personally, that's just not what I wanted. I found other stuff that I was interested in, and that's just what we're gonna do now. Also, Felipe and I are just really big on traveling. Like that's been the biggest thing that we've always wanted to do since we've been with each other, and having some kind of an office job or any kind of job that's gonna make us stay at wherever we are just isn't something that we want to do. From there, it's really just kind of adjusting to wherever you're living. I would say the biggest thing is that you might feel a little lonely because obviously like you're being sent to a new place, so you don't know anybody, you don't have friends. I got really lucky that I was able to transfer from my last job here, so I was able to make friends pretty quickly at my job. They're all really nice, I love them. But when you're in this kind of situation, at least for me personally, it doesn't really feel like I'll ever get the kind of friends that I have back home. I've known my best friends for like the last 9-10 years. And honestly, I don't really think you can find those kind of connections with other people when you're constantly having to move around around. So trying to make friends isn't the easiest thing to do. It was easier for Felipe because obviously he has all of the guys at work. So he has his group of friends, which obviously I enjoy being around, but like I said, it's never going to be the same for either one of us where we can find relationships with people the way that we do with our friend group back home. He'll always have his boys back in Florida and I'll always have my group. Other than that, everything's pretty much the same as any other marriage or relationship. You just kind of enjoy life as a military wife. Obviously, you get benefits. Honestly, most of it really just depends on the situation that you're in. Honestly, we just really lucked out with our situation and just how things were at the time. Things for us here aren't really all that difficult. We really just made the best of living in Alaska and it's really not bad. There's obviously just a lot of things that need to be talked about before getting married or just going into a military relationship in general. A lot of it might just be situational, but I feel like at least what I can talk about, that's pretty much most of what I would say is difficult or just some stuff that you might run into along the way. Other than that, that's really it. We're thankful that Felipe hasn't got deployed. That's another really big thing is deployment, because with those you never know when they're going to come back. Yeah, we've gotten really lucky that he hasn't had to deploy yet, but I'd imagine that that's something huge to overcome. All of that is definitely important to discuss with your partner before like either one of you decide to go into anything, especially if you're in our situation. Being as young as we are, that's definitely a huge commitment. So honestly, that's really all that I can speak about for now. I feel like there's not really anything else that I can say was difficult or hard at the moment, and I don't really think there is anything else that might come along the way other than deployment, like I had just mentioned. But other than that, just from like at least the transition from being at home and then getting married and having to move your whole life to wherever your partner is stationed, there's a lot that can happen in between. So I feel like that's really just where I wanted to focus this video on, just like what to look forward to and what to expect in the event that you are marrying somebody who is in the military. And after all that talking, I only got done with one hand, so I still have to do this other one. But to be fair, I've been talking, so it makes it a little hard to talk and do my nails at the same time. This is what they look like. I don't know what I was going for, but don't mind all that stuff. I just kind of did like abstract-ish shenanigans. I don't know, something different other than just like plain black, white, whatever. Anywhoosies, I hope this video was somewhat informational for those who needed to hear what it's like before getting into anything, and just for those who are curious as to what it's like being a military wife. Day to day really isn't any different. I still go to work. I still do wife duty things. Other than that, I would say the only obstacles are really like in that beginning from transitioning into. That's all I gotta say. I'm gonna go do my other hand, and that's gonna be it for this one. If this is the first time that you're watching, hope we made a subscriber out of you. We have many other more entertaining videos where we do vlogs, challenges, all that fun stuff that you guys can check out if you're not into the whole sit down chit chat thing. Yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with all the peoples, because I'm trying to reach 500. So if you're new, hope you guys stick around. And if you're not new, I will see you in the next video. Bye!